Okay, we're going to continue on in our Father's Word. It's cold here in North Florida this morning. The high yesterday was 50 degrees. We're going to the book of Job, and we're going to talk about whirlwinds. But I want to read to you the first couple of chapters of Job. Job means persecuted, and this is when Satan was down on earth. He wasn't up in heaven behind. He had to get behind Jesus when Jesus told him to get behind him, Satan. And so Satan had to follow Jesus up to heaven when Jesus rose to our Father. And he's right behind our Father in heaven and Jesus, right there in the middle. He's our accuser. But during the Old Testament, here, let's read about Satan being down here on earth. This is Job 1. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was blameless and upright, and one who feared God and shunned evil. And 7 sons and 3 daughters were born to him. Also his possessions were 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and a very large household. So that this man was the greatest of all the people of the East. And his sons would go and feast in their houses, and each on his appointed day, and would send and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. So it was, when the days of feasting had run their course, that Job would send and sanctify them, and he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, "It may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." Thus Job did regularly. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. And the Lord said to Satan, "From where did you come?" So Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil." So Satan answered the Lord and said, "Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not made a hedge around him, around his household, and around all that he has on every side? You have blessed the works of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But now stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." And the Lord said to Satan, "Behold, all that he has is in your power, only do not lay a hand on his person." So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. And now there was a day when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And a message came to Job and said, "The oxen were plowing and the donkeys feeding beside them, when the Sabeans raided them and took them away. Indeed, they have killed the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another also came and said, "The fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them, and I alone have escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another also came and said, "The Chaldeans formed 3 bands, raided the camels, and took them away, and yes, and killed the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another also came and said, "Your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, and suddenly a great wind came from across the wilderness and struck the 4 corners of the house, and it fell on the young people, and they are dead, and I alone have escaped to tell you." And then Job arose and tore his robe and shaved his head, and he fell on the ground and worshipped. And he said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. And the Lord gave, and the Lord shall be taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." In all this, Job did not sin nor charge God with wrong. Now, there's 36 chapters of Job that his 3 friends come and tell him how he had messed up and how to blame God for all the stuff that had happened to him. And now here in Job 38, we're going to talk about the whirlwind. Just like God sent the whirlwind down to get Elijah in 2 Kings 2. We're going to read that too. The whirlwind. This saucer-shaped craft. It has a circle in the front and a triangle in the middle of it. The circle means most important part. The apple of your eye. The middle of your eye. The most important part of your eye. This is the most important thing. You read it first. And the triangle means Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. That's a whirlwind. And God has a bunch of them. And He created the Zun or the Zoe, these creatures that we read about that drive the whirlwind. They took Satan's place because Satan rebelled 14,000 years ago. Satan was leading a third of God's children, God's stars. Revelation 12:3, and the dragon used his tail to sweep 1/3 of God's stars. We were all spiritual creatures at that time, and Satan had 1/3 of God's stars following him, according to Revelation 12:3. Now, this whirlwind comes out of a great triangular shaped ship that has 3 lights on it. You can see right through it. It's in another dimension, but it's got 3 lights on it. It's triangular shaped. It's God's mothership, and these smaller scout ships stay inside of that mothership whenever God's not using them. But He uses these things to carry His throne in and to protect His throne, because these Zun and the Zoe, they were created after Satan rebelled 14,000 years ago. The Katabole, spelled Katabole. So Satan rebelled 14,000 years ago. God shook the earth, and the firmament came crashing into the ocean, covered up Atlantis, Lemuria, those cities around India and Japan. They find 400 or 500 feet down below the ocean level of today. Now, Tuhuavuhu means void and without form. God did not create earth void and without form. He made earth void and without form. And then on the 6th day after the Katabole, 8,000 years ago, God created the Gentiles, the people with the O and the A blood, Adam. And then on the 7th day, God rested. And then on the 8th day, God created the Jews, the people with the B blood type. The Gentiles have the O, hunter-gatherers, the black folk of Africa, and the white cavemen of Europe, the red meat and potato eaters. And then the A blood, Asia, that's the red-skinned people, the fishermen, the fish and rice eaters. They can't digest red meat, so they get diabetes, heart disease, cancer real bad, because they try to eat red meat and they're fishermen. So God created the farmers, the husbandmen, the tillers of the dirt, the Jews, the people with the B blood type. He created them on the 8th day, so that'd be 6,000 years ago. And then 2,000 years ago, when the Holy Spirit mixed with Mother Mary, with the B blood type, Jew blood, Mother Mary's bloodline goes through Luke 3. Luke 3 is Mother Mary's bloodline, and it tells you exactly the bloodline of Christ. Joseph's bloodline is Matthew 1, and Solomon's in it, but Solomon's not in the bloodline of Christ. Nathan, David's son Nathan's in the bloodline of Christ, and Solomon didn't make it into the bloodline of Christ. But we're going to read here in Job 38 about the whirlwind, these creatures that protect God's throne. They took Satan's place. Satan was a protecting cherubim with the wings. Cherubims have wings. Angels don't need wings. You just go from point A to point B. You're a spiritual entity when you're an angel. So we're going to read about this whirlwind, and then we're going to go to 2 Kings and read about Elijah in the whirlwind, and then we're going to go to Ezekiel 1, and read about Ezekiel being visited by